Hey everybody, welcome to MT Guitar. Thanks for joining us today. Wanted to cover my 5 tips for soloing and improvising. Always a good idea to improvise in solo over songs that you already know. And I'm going to show you 3 songs where we're going to try some of these tips out, and I'll show you kind of how I would approach it. So let's jump right in. The first tip would be to understand the key that you're in. And it's kind of a two-parter here. The number one is both understand the key and the Roman numerals of the song you're playing or chord progression. This might seem kind of obvious to know the key, but believe it or not, it's not just about knowing the one chord, it's about knowing the parent scale. And what I mean by the parent scale is if you have 4 chords in a song, you might have a bunch of scales you can play. You can play a scale off each of those chords, etc. But at a certain point, you may just want to play some real singable melodic lines in a song. And you can access the parent scale, whether it's major or minor, of that song, of that key. So for instance, if I'm playing a song in the key of G and I have some C chords, some D chords, even E minor, whatever, I can keep playing G major. And that's something we forget. We don't have to always be complicated. We can just play a nice G major pentatonic over the 4 chord, over the 5 chord. And a lot of times you'll hear vocal melodies do that. They won't address every chord melodically. Now, as far as the Roman numerals, you want to look at the chords and understand, is there a 4 chord? Is there a 5 chord? Is there a 6 chord? Those are the 3 to start with besides the 1. And when you do that, it's not just about writing it down on paper and then being done with it. You want to take the next step and play those roots all over the fretboard in different octaves. Now, let's take a song like Wagon Wheel. G, D, E minor, C. All right, before I think about major, minor, scales, anything like that, I'm just going to take those roots, G, D, E, and C, and play them all over the neck briefly. And that's going to familiarize myself with how the song works in terms of the Roman numerals, just in terms of the roots. And then I can actually play it not just in the bass, but all over. So here's G, D, maybe I start in the bass, G, and then it goes to D to C, up an octave. Now here's a high D, D, E. Now you don't really hear the song that clearly because I'm not playing the chords or anything interesting. But if I sang the melody, now you can hear the song. So play it with intention. It's not the most exciting exercise, but this is our first tip. This is a really strong foundation to understanding where the roots are. I'm only playing G root, D root, C. And the first time around, G, D, E minor, C. So you can do that with any song all over the neck. Okay, there would be one position. You could move on to other frets, other positions, other octaves. All right, so understanding the Roman numerals in the key. Another way I'd like to think about number 1 is that the key is like home. And if you have a compass, it's going to point you home. And that's going to feel like a resolve. Every chord is going to be stops along the way. And it's not going to be true north. Each Roman numeral besides 1 is actually taking us away from home. And it's like a journey, and you take stops along the way. So you want to know where you're going to resolve, where that 1 chord's going to be, and where that root is. All right? Hopefully that makes sense. Number 2, we're going to take special notice of any chords that are outside of the key. This is really crucial. If you're a studio guitarist, if you're a lead guitarist, if you're a rock or jazz musician who's soloing a lot, you're going to want to really pay attention to chords that are not in the actual key of the song. Or that, well, a better way to say it would be a chord that takes us slightly outside of the key. Great example, if I take Creep by Radiohead, we would start with E major to G sharp. Now, if we're in the key of E major, we need to know that major has 1, 4, 5 as major chords, 2, 3, 6 is minor. 7 is diminished, it's not that common. So, 2 and 3 is minor, right? 2 and 3 are minor. Well, when I go to the 3 chord, they play G sharp major. So what do I want to do? Well, I want to take notice that that is a special chord. that grabs our ear. And if I don't address that correctly, it's going to sound like I'm just wrong, right? Because if I just continue to play E major for that chord, sounds like I don't really know what I'm doing, right? Which sometimes that's fine, sometimes that works, but you also kind of want to hit those notes. So we take notice that the third is major, and it's a C note instead of a B if it were minor. So that C is not part of E major. So when I solo or improvise, I want to nail that C note. It sounds like, oh, this person really knows the song. Now we go to the 4 chord, it's A. 4 chords is major traditionally, so that's fine. But now it goes to 4 minor. Again, here's that C note. It happens to be the same note as the G sharp major third. So that C note, I can emphasize again for A minor. And then back to regular B note for the resolution, for the 1 chord. See? Back to B. There's the C. Now A. This is all E major, and then A minor is out of E major. And then we resolve it to the B. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Creep's a really nice example because it's so, the chords move so slowly, right? So we really get to practice these things. Okay, that's number 2. Another example of number 2 in action would be a flat 7 chord, Angel from Montgomery. Make me an angel that flies from... So in the key of D, we have a flat 7. It goes from a D to a C. And that C is, the C note is not in the key of D. The key of D has an a C sharp. So if I'm soloing or improvising, make me an angel, I'd want to play that flat 7 because the Roman numeral is outside of the key. Back to G major, I can continue with my D major pentatonic. So here's D major pentatonic. Make me in a C. Back to D major pentatonic is fine as a starting place. C, D major, here's the C. Back to D major, and it sounds correct. There you go. Number 3 is something that I've covered extensively on my channel. I have a live stream called Chord Tones, Lead Guitar 101. So tip number 3 would be connected to that. It's play the arpeggio of each chord. Play the chord tones of each chord. So if I have a song like Wagon Wheel, I'd play the arpeggio of a G major chord. I start with the 1, 3, 5. Maybe quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'd have D major, and maybe stick to one position for now. 1, 3, 5. E minor. 1 flat 3, 5, 1. C major. 1, 3, 5, 1. So that would be. When you get good at that, you can start doing faster or eighth notes. Now it starts to sound almost like a solo. Okay, then you can add a 7th if you want, although there's not really a 7th chord in Wagon Wheel, but you could add the diatonic 7th or the major 7 on the 1, the flat 7 or dominant 7 on the 5, the minor 7 or the flat 7 on the 6, and the major 7 on the 4. Okay, that's a different lesson, but basically just playing the 1, 3, 5 of each chord is called blowing the changes, and it's how people really learn how to solo besides just playing a million notes. Because you don't want to just always sit here and play big long scales. You want to play the chord tones. They're a little bit more what the ear gravitates towards as far as how the chords evolve. Okay, now number 4 and 5, we're getting to the parts where really, if you do the foundation of numbers 1 through 3, where you understand the key, the Roman numerals, and the chord tones, you're really ready to start rocking and rolling. Number 4 would be to practice more than one scale over any given chord or song, and to understand that you have options. let's say we're doing Angel from Montgomery. The verse is just 1 to 4. Great progression to practice over for a while. 3 times. That's D to G, A to D. So we have a 1, 4, 1, 4, 3 times. So we would do, for instance, we could say we're going to play D major scale over the D chord and then G major over it. But we're going to do G Lydian because it's the 4th mode of D major and it's the 4 chord. So I have these kind of like, it's pretty crowded, it's a lot of notes all together, but we could practice that. So we have those options. What if we wanted to make it simpler? We could say we're going to play D major pentatonic and G major pentatonic. So we have options. Probably more likely for a solo unless it's straight bluegrass. If it's pop or folk or rock or blues, it might be a little more pentatonic of a solo. So you'd practice D major, G major, pentatonic. A major pentatonic, back to D. What if I wanted to practice, what if I wanted to play D major even while the G major is playing? Meaning I have more than one option. I don't have to just always play G major. So the D goes to G, and I stay on D major pentatonic. Then when I get tired of that, I can go to the A. See, back to D. So I can play the parent scale or the D major pentatonic if it's in the key of D, even over the 4 chord, even over the 5 chord. I don't have to switch scales. Same thing with minor. You can play minor pentatonic. You can also play Aeolian or natural minor. You could play Dorian if it's the 2 chord. So understanding that it never ends in terms of all the possible scales and note choices you can make. Now, number 5 would be to learn the melody that the singer is singing and to use that melody as a vehicle for improvisation and transformation. In classical music, they call this theme and variation. And actually, improvisation has been happening since long before the days of Bach. Bach would famously improvise for 4 hours for certain religious events or events. And he would take a theme. He would take it and he would start messing around with it with different chord progressions and whatnot as well. But he would mess with the actual melody. You can create little riffs yourself, or you can learn the riffs of a song and mess around with it. All right. A good example would be, say, "Wish You Were Here." There's a riff. Now, I could learn that up and down the neck. Great exercise. It happens to be in G major pentatonic. What a coincidence, because the song is in G major. And then, learn it in different fingerings and different octaves. Now, when you're done with that, you've kind of done it all around, then you can start to mess with the melody. And you'll find that you're going to play a lot of cool ideas. Embellish it. Mess with the rhythms. You're taking an idea and you're letting it do the work for you. You're letting your ear guide you as opposed to your mind or your fingers. See? I'm almost like putting fills in between the riff. Whatever the riff is, it could be Sunshine of Your Love, different octave. Okay. Great for your improvisational chops because now you know where these notes are. What if I change the notes? Keep the same rhythm. Speed it up. Repeat notes, etc. This is going to give you ideas, meaning you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time and come up with some geniusly inventive, creative idea. Although that's great, but a lot of times we can use the riffs, the melodies that are in the song we're working with. So there you go. Hopefully that makes sense. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Check out the Patreon if you get a chance and see if it'll work for you. And I really appreciate your support. So let me know if this helps, and looking forward to seeing you next lesson. Bye.